Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to build Jack? Jack? What's he on about? Jack of all trades, of course, because the whole point of this build is that we're essentially aiming to maximize bang for buck for a mixture of gaming and productivity. We want an all-in-one system that can pretty much do anything, and it's not going to be like ultra budget, but this really is just about maximizing bang for buck and just getting every level of performance really that you can, whilst keeping costs as low as possible. Throughout this video, we're going to show you all of the components that we have here on the desk, why they're included in this rig, how to put it all together, and then of course at the end of the video, we're going to show you those all-important gameplay benchmark numbers to show exactly how this thing will perform, as well as show you a little bit of productivity so you can see exactly what this machine can do. It is going to be an incredibly exciting build and I can't wait to get started. All I have to say is a massive thank you to Intel for sponsoring this video. Let's jump into it. So as I alluded to in the intro, this is very much a PC that's kind of geared in two different halves. We've got the gaming side of things and the productivity. And obviously when it comes to gaming, this is pretty much one of the most fan favorite graphics cards really that you can buy. This is from Intel. This is the Arc B580. This is the limited edition one that is actually made by Intel. If I can actually get this box open. And this is probably my favorite looking one, but I do want to say that there obviously are a load of B580s and B570s that you can get, and there's quite often one on sale. At the time of filming, I'll leave it linked down below if it's still available when you're watching this, you can actually get this exact one for under £220 here in the UK, which is unheard of for a graphics card, let alone a graphics card with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. And it was only, well, last week we were looking at an 8 gigabyte card from a rival, and as soon as you booted up Indiana Jones and changed a couple of settings, the whole FPS just went to the toilet essentially, because the card will run out of VRAM, whereas obviously having 12 gigabytes is a lot more future-proof. And the performance that you're going to get from this, like, while obviously it's not like the absolute best, it's not a £2,000 GPU, for 1080p and 1440p, as I say, I still think it's more than most people actually need. So if you're looking to build yourself a gaming PC and you want great FPS, but it doesn't have to be like ultra ray tracing 4K, then this obviously is one of the best choices that you can get. But of course, we don't actually need our graphics card just yet, as that will slot in towards the end of the build. So let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is going to be the CPU. And I actually think that this is one of the hardest components for people to buy at the moment, just because there's so many choices. Getting the right one for you isn't always easy. There's obviously lower core count chips that have like insane gaming performance, but then aren't going to be great at productivity. You've got other core count CPUs that have a crazy amount of cores but then aren't very good at gaming, and this kind of deliberately sits in the middle of that really, where it's great for gaming and it's great for productivity at the same time. But fundamentally for me, the price on this has come down to the point where it's really easy to recommend, especially if you're going to go for a B series motherboard, which just means that when you combine the two together, you just get loads of performance that, as I say, is going to be great for pretty much any task, but without spending an absolute arm and a leg to get there. I mean, yes, there are going to be better gaming CPUs that will be better in certain games, certain resolutions and things like that, but fundamentally, if you do want an all-round option that has a lot more cores, this is a 20-core CPU, so that's 8 performance and 12 efficient. As I say, it's just going to be able to handle pretty much everything. And the exact motherboard that we're going for here can be found for just a smidge over £150 at the time of filming. This is the B860 Steel Legend Wi-Fi from ASRock. It is a white board. I probably would have gone for a black one if I had one, but the only other B860 that I have is micro ATX, and I think that would look even weirder. So we're going for this. It's full-size ATX. It's got loads of features. You actually get Thunderbolt as well on this, Thunderbolt 4. We'll show you the I/O in just a second. And I've got to say that is definitely one of the best things about going for an Intel board, and that is very much that you just get a great all-round I/O. I mean, look at the amount of USB ports on that. I mean, you've only got one USB-C. I'd probably prefer to see 2, but that is your Thunderbolt port there. And obviously you are going to get one on the case as well, assuming you're using that header. You've got M.2 heatsink here, room for a couple more slots down the bottom. It supports PCI Generation 5 drives as well if you want to go down that route in the future. Probably wouldn't now, save yourself the money, but always great to have the option. 4 RAM slots, good VRMs, pretty much got everything that you need. Oh, it's got Wi-Fi as well, and the BIOS flashback button. But I think now is the time to actually get our build started, so let's grab our motherboard, drop it down on top of the box. I will also say as well that if you do go for an Ultra CPU or a qualifying Intel graphics card, full terms and conditions are down below, you can actually grab a free game, and I believe that it stacks, so if you buy both, you can get 2 games. One of those is Battlefield 6, let's be honest, you probably do want anyway. And I want some scissors. But as I was saying, you can also get a copy of Assassin's Creed Shadows, Civilization VII, or Dying Like the Beast. You get one of those per product that you buy. So I mean, take the B580 for instance. If you did get that for under £220, again at the time of filming, and you're going to buy Battlefield 6 anyway, and that's about £60, that's essentially saving you, well, £60. You're getting the 12 gigabyte of RAM B580 for essentially about 160 net. All you need to do to get this installed is just open up this slot, this little arm, grab your Ultra 7-lit, and then line this up with the slot like that. Give it a little wiggle to make sure it's secure, then gently just push that down and then lock this into place. And I have a feeling we might actually remove this in a second when it comes to our cooler, but most coolers you kind of will use this retention bracket. So let's hold fire a second. I don't want to get confusing. Oh, and then, oh no, this comes the bad bit. And I'm really sorry guys, there's literally nothing I can do about this, but unfortunately, if you build any form of gaming PC at the moment, you're gonna need to grab some of this, some DDR5 memory, unless you're building an older system with DDR4. But even then, for whatever reason, we think it's down to AI, but the price of memory has quite literally gone through the roof. I cannot believe it. You used to be able to buy a kit like this, which is DDR5 6000 32 kit CL30 for just over £100. So on a good day, maybe this was like 110, 115 pounds or dollars. Whereas now you're almost looking at, well, we basically are looking at about 200 pounds or dollars for the exact same kit, just because pricing has gone through the roof. And unfortunately, we don't really know when this is going to change. So I'd love to say to you, just wait a little bit, but that little bit could be years. We genuinely do not know. So if you need to build a gaming PC right now, unfortunately, you're just gonna have to take the hit. But when a lot of the other components have come down in price, it does mean that overall, things aren't actually too bad. And I mean, if you do have some DDR5 already that you can carry over from a previous rig, then obviously you would be laughing, unless you paid loads of money for that in the first place. But you just need to get your RAM, make sure you click this into place, should be nice, loud and audible, and that you have them in slots 2 and 4. If you don't do that, then you're basically getting half the speed. So yeah, unfortunately, that is a little bit lame. That was from G-Skill, by the way, some Trident Z5. But our SSD, these have definitely come down in price. I think they've maybe gone up a little bit in the last few months, but I mean, nothing crazy. You can still find this for around about like 70 to 80 pounds as your target price. This is from Lexar. It is the NM790, but there's a lot of other SSDs we recommend as well. Usually just get a nice fast 7,000 megabytes a second on the reads drive for around about 70, whatever's on sale. And is this going to be toolless? It looks like it. Yeah, there you go. That just opens up. Oh, and it's double-sided, which is always nice to see on this board. So if you do go for like a 2 or 4 terabyte SSD, then hopefully all of your memory should be touching one of these heat sinks as we remove the plastic cover. And then we grab our drive, gently lower this into position, kind of clicks into place. This has a little catch, look, that you can move till it holds the thing in position, and then just do what you did in reverse. Nice and easy, completely toolless. But right, now we have come to the bit that's a little bit different, because it is cooler time, and if you're building on the Intel platform and you go for an Arctic, they usually give you what they call a contact frame, which the whole idea is it just gives you better contact between the cooler and the CPU. So rather than having to like overbuild the cooler, you just make it more efficient so you get more cooling out of the same smaller size essentially. This one is from Arctic. This is the Freezer 36 ARGB. It is my favorite cooler on the market, which is why we use it all of the time. It's so easy to install and the performance for the size is very, very good. But inside the box should be some mounting hardware, and then this, which is your contact frame. Right, but in this little box, you should find one of these, which is, what, a little Allen key? And then you find you have these kind of hex screws that you wouldn't normally remove, but we are going to do that today. I think actually we need to take this whole thing off first. There you go, just like that. And then your bracket takes off. Do the same with that. Then you can get your contact frame and just gently place this over the chip. Maybe I need a different contact frame. Maybe this was for 14th gen. But that doesn't seem to fit, does it? I think we're using a different cooler. This is me thinking on my feet. This is also from Arctic. It is the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro, so it's still very good value, but it will have more performance. It's just a radiator.
No, I hate radiators.
Ah, there you go, look. I've taken the contact frame out of this other box, and look, that fits. So I wonder, I'll check this. It might be that this cooler, the revised versions, actually comes with this now, but we'll leave the link down below to whatever. The hardware inside the new box though is basically the same. We just get a load of radiator screws as well. So let's take our Intel mounting screws out, and then this goes through those same holes and attaches to the bottom. And then I'm really pleased to say that once you've done that, most of the hard bit is actually complete now. You can start to focus on the more fun bits, like actually analyzing your case. That doesn't really sound that fun. Enjoying your case, and then obviously think about installing like your graphics card and getting all the clicky noises. That makes it sound a little bit nerdy, but PC building is nerdy, and I enjoy it, whatever. So this is actually a case that was requested by someone in the comments last week. This is from Lee and Lee. This is the V100, and they said, it's a great budget case. So let's see, shall we? I mean, it doesn't actually look particularly cheap. You can definitely notice that it is more affordable when you realize that, you know, plastic on the top, that obviously doesn't look quite as nice, but you'll find once you've actually got all of your components inside, as long as the power button feels nice and everything that you see looks good, obviously you're not really noticing the rest of it too much other than during the build process. It doesn't look like a bargain basement case, but compared to something like the Fanatec's NV5 that isn't actually that much more expensive, it definitely is a fair bit of a cutback, but we shall see. It also doesn't come with any fans as well. Side panel's nice and thick though, that comes off easy. It's doing things a little bit different as well because your I/O is actually here, and this is pretty good actually if you want to have your PC on the desk, because obviously this is a bit more accessible, but then likewise if you put this on the floor, then suddenly I/O is so far away, that'd be a right pain in the bum, but they've optimized this for more desk PCs. You can see you've got this RGB strip here, that should look quite nice. The whole thing actually, whilst it doesn't have any cable management like grommets and things inside, does actually look quite nice. You've got the glass here on the front, which obviously gives you a bit more of a pano view to your case, and you've got these slots here for cooling that you will need to populate, otherwise this just will look weird. If you're going to do it for like a month or so to your next paycheck, fine, but if you're planning a build on this, this kind of needs to be used, as I say, or will look a little bit weird. I like the fact that they've given you an actual box of screws, which just makes them a little bit easier to organise and obviously keep for later on. Small touches, but always helps, especially on a more budget-orientated case. They haven't pre-sorted them though. Boo. But obviously I am aware that I'm being very nitpicky, so let's spin this round and actually have a look at the other side, because this could be make or break. This is a little bit on the thinner side, but again, not in like ultra cheap territory, so this is gonna be absolutely fine. You've actually got it kind of perforated, so there's quite a lot of airflow coming through here as well, which obviously you'd expect when you have this frame here for all of the extra fans. Basic I/O, black cables, looks pretty nice. Rim down the bottom for power supply, can breathe in from the underside, and you can also mount fans on the inside that can feed straight into your GPU. So this is definitely one of those cases that you can grow into a little bit. You don't have to kind of use it for a couple of years and then upgrade it later because it's obviously holding back your hardware. I think this would be absolutely fine into the future, but let's be clear, it is a little bit on the plasticky side. Getting our motherboard installed should be pretty straightforward. This is a more premium board, so we don't have to worry about actually manually putting in our I/O shield, and all of the standoffs for ATX form factor are pre-applied. Then we can pick up our motherboard and then just carefully and gently line this up so that that back hole is received and that this kind of clips the whole thing into position. You could in theory pick it up now, but I wouldn't risk it. Make sure you use the screws just to get this all nice, safe and secure. Make sure you don't use the wrong screws though. You got ones that look just like the motherboard screws, but are a little bit too big, and then they just take the standoffs with them. Who recommended this? Let's try that again then, shall we, with the correct screws. And actually, I think that's looking really quite nice. It's all right. I think it was just slightly unclipped from a hole. As I said, quite a plasticky case. That aside, I think the whole thing is working quite nicely actually. I think it's partly as well the fact that you've obviously got the white bits on the RAM that go into the black that then go obviously into the white and black board. It actually is looking really quite nicely themed here. But let's give this a spin round and then do some of the cabling, as it's easier to do this before you put anything else inside. So let's open up our straps. So we've got our USB 3, USB-C, HD audio. That means that when you actually plug the case in to like a headset or something, it will actually work. We've got some addressable RGB that we can daisy chain. And then for the power button, we have this little front panel connection. We just want to route these through to their respective positions. To actually get these connected, look, our addressable RGB is just down here at the bottom. Let's start with our USBs. There's only one right way of doing it. So like that, if it doesn't really want to go in, try the other way and it will click. Above that, we have our USB 3. Right at the bottom, our power switch. It's the one that just says front panel on it. Then we have our addressable RGB, goes there. And then last but certainly not least, our HD audio, which connects at the bottom left. Right, and now that we've done that, we should be ready for the CPU cooler. Oh, and if you can't already tell, I haven't actually used this one yet. I've used the older one, which I found was a little bit difficult to install on the other platform. But for Intel, especially with the contact frame, should be pretty straightforward. That looks like it's got a fan in it as well. Yes, it does, look. Magnets, and then you've got fan and RGB that kind of comes through the pump head. That's quite cool. Oh, and there it is, look. That's quite thick. That's a lot thicker than I thought. Wow, okay. And I'm just wondering about mounting, because the cheapest way of doing it would be to have no other fans at all and kind of fitting that there. But actually, as you can see, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Maybe it's just because it's a bit thicker at the top and bottom. Yeah, I think that is actually. I mean, is this even going to work at the top? Oh, yes it is. Okay, well that's definitely gonna have to go at the top then. Let's take this off. But you're not really gonna have any room at all to fit your CPU cables and things for power and any CPU fan cables once that's in. So let's see if we can actually feed through our power supply cable first. Oh, and it's here. The one that we're using is actually from NZXT. This is the C750, but there's a newer version that we'll link down below. This is, well, an older one. And the magic cable that we're looking for is in this purple bag. There it is listed as CPU. I mean, it should be really nice and easy to get this plugged in. We'll put it into ATX 12 volt 1. You can put a second one in, but for almost all instances, you don't actually need it because you're not going to be putting that much power into your chip in the first place. Then we can just tuck this back round. And it looks actually as if you can have 3 separate connections. So you can either have one connection that will do everything, or you've got one for fan, one for pump, and one for VRM. That's probably the one we want to use. So let's get these connected at the top. Look, CPU fan for the fans. Pump can go into the grey one at the bottom that says pump. And then the VRM fan can go into CPU fan 2. Just make sure that you do tune them once you've got it working, just so that one of them isn't making too much noise. Oh, lay our computer flat once again. Grab our thermal compound that comes in the box. Some coolers have it pre-applied, some give you a tube. And then you can get your radiator and push that at the back, because you do want to screw this in first. Just screw it in like this. They give you loads of screws, but to be honest, 4 should be fine. I usually go for 6. And then the tubes facing at the bottom, this whole thing should literally just line up with that contact framework. And then can I just screw in slightly on one side just to catch it. Hold your screwdriver over with the other, and then screw the other side in. And then the whole thing, well, not literally, but should come alive. And obviously you can then just kind of alternate to get this safe and secure. Then plug in those fan cables into the side, just like that. Connect up the ARGB cable to this header here. And then last, but certainly not least, just grab this little Arctic VRM fan, and that should literally just kind of click into place with some magnets. It's a little bit off center actually, that threw me off, but that is right. So then, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we now have a pretty busy productivity and gaming machine. I'm not a massive fan of that, but I mean, when it comes to performance, I think this is gonna be really, really good. So excited to see how that will get on. We do obviously now have the fans missing here. So the way I think we're gonna get around that nice and easily is with one of these. So it is slightly cheaper to buy individual fans, but this is a fan frame from NZXT. It will daisy chain off the RGB that we already have, and it'll fill that gap quite nicely for around about £53 or something like that, again at the time of filming. Boom, there it is. See, just one single piece. We will have to use this as an intake though. It's literally just 4 screws, look, to get this safe and secure. Then we can get this ARGB cable and daisy chain this off of the ones that we have for the case. If you prefer to just plug it into the motherboard, you can too, because there's a total of 3 on this board. But of course, don't forget about the fan speed, which can tuck through, then plug into chassis fan number 1. I mean, once we're here, we may as well actually take out the PCIe slot for number 2 and for number 3. Just like that. And then we can take the opportunity to always actually have a little feel of this, because it's got like this soft matte touch finish to it. That's very odd for a graphics card. It's nice because it's obviously not something that you're normally handling, but attention to detail here is good. But obviously regardless, we can grab our 12GB of VRAM graphics card and then just kind of push it home till you get a little bit of a click, then grab those same screws and just get that fitted down. But obviously we do need that power supply. It is the final piece of the puzzle. It's going to go in this hole down here. We've already got it out, as I say, newer version. I mean, current pricing on everything is actually linked down below if you do want to check at current price, especially on that memory. But this is what we call a modular power supply, so all of the cables are separate. You wouldn't be able to do what we did here if you had a if you had a non-modular power supply, you wouldn't be able to feed this in separately and plug it in. But the benefit is, in this instance, that we can plug this in to the CPU port without obviously having to faff around with putting that radiator in, out, shake it all about. But let's connect up the rest of our power supply. It's just the ATX for the motherboard and the PCIe for the graphics card, because obviously we've already done that CPU. Gently move these cables out of the way. If you find you can't get it fitted like potentially we do here, you just need to unplug them and plug them back into where you found them. It's always the HD audio, that's the culprit. And then look, that slides in, boom. Fan facing downwards though. You could have it up in this, but when you've got a dedicated ventilation with a dust filter, why would you want to do it any other way? But let's get this secured down with the PSU screws. But once we've done that, we can just feed our HD audio back through, grab our PCIe. I personally like to have this come underneath, but some people prefer it from the side. And then the last one is this large ATX. You can't miss this, and this kind of creeps in through the top side. It's worth using these cable management straps as you go as well. I like as well that you have these little hooks for the CPU cable at the top. I don't know why more cases don't do this. It's frankly ludicrous, but just get it nice and neat. Give it one final spin round. Graphics card, just one 8-pin on this. Doesn't use a crazy amount of power. That can go in there like that. Then start to feed the cables back through just to get rid of that slack. Cable tie, something to hold that down in a second. There you go, just like that. Oh, and then the absolute last piece of the puzzle, I've over cable managed that, is this ATX. It's large, you can't miss it. And that just pushes in like so. And then, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it, our completed system in terms of cable management. I've got one cable just to kind of neatly tuck in there, like so. We haven't really added that much, and because obviously both our 3 fans on the fan frame and 3 fans on the cooler are all controlled over one cable each, it's made this infinitely cleaner than it otherwise would. But I think we should plop our top back on. There we are. I don't like the top on this whatsoever. It feels really cheap. I know you're not going to be touching it all of the time,
but I don't like it.
But let's grab ourselves an OLED monitor. If you do want to watch a video all about the very best OLEDs that you can get in 2025 through to 26, you find this video in the top right corner of your screen. And then, of course, if you're quick, you can also grab the final Black Friday sale on our PC Centric mouse mat. You can grab this, it's priced from $9.99 plus taxes and shipping. Get it linked down below. It's available worldwide as well, or at least wherever we can ship to. But whilst you're heading down to pccentric.store, I'm going to get this plugged in, and then we're gonna see if it'll work. And we've got some fans spinning. That is always a great sign. Lots of RGB there. We will have to sync it up in the software because we're using different headers, but if you were daisy chaining all of them and all of the fans or the quantity of fans was supported, then obviously you wouldn't need to do that. But you can see it really does come alive, doesn't it? It's a pretty cool looking rig. The only thing I don't like about those NZXT fan hubs is that you can kind of see the hot spotting on the RGB LEDs, which is a little bit annoying. I think the fans actually for the Arctic probably match it better. So if you get more of those, then that would be a better fit. But otherwise, I think that looks really good, doesn't it? It's more than functional, but you know, it's not like a £3,000 or dollar gaming rig. But again, for the money, the amount of performance you're getting for both productivity and gaming is pretty astounding. But it works for the way, look, it's on. And with that then, ladies and gentlemen, apparently we're gonna spin the chair. Here we are, all set up and ready to go. I had a fantastic lunch actually, Cajun chicken pizza. I have enabled the XMP profile and we've just downloaded a load of games, and we've also downloaded Davinci Resolve. And I think it's fair to say that Battlefield and PC gaming pretty much go hand in hand. I mean, it was actually Battlefield 3 that first got me into PC gaming in the first place. And what you're seeing here is running at 1080p. We do have this running at the high preset, though I have turned the textures up to overkill because we have that extra bit of VRAM that we can properly utilize. And the frame rate is gonna be quite variable in a game like this because obviously there's so much going on. If you're in like a quiet bit and there's not that many people, no explosions, obviously you're gonna have a really high frame rate. But when things really do start to tank, with a lot of stuff obviously going on screen, then obviously the frame rate is going to lower. So the lowest I've seen at the moment is typically anywhere really about like 70-ish frames a second or so. We're usually averaging anywhere between about 80 and 100. As I say, it's quite variable. If you look at the top right corner of your screen, those yellow numbers, am I colorblind? The green numbers in the top right corner, basically whatever's lower out of CPU and GPU, that should be the frame rate that you're actually going to get in game. So with multiplayer, you'd typically be aiming really for anywhere around about 100 frames a second or so. But obviously, as I say, this is quite intense, so it is massively going to vary depending on the system that you have. But obviously, I'd love to have more. If you wanted to upgrade that graphics card to something that costs more money, you would get a higher frame rate as a result. But if you're pairing the B580 with this Ultra 7, then yeah, you're typically looking really anywhere between about 80 and 100 frames a second. But again, it does massively depend on the map that you're playing on. But let's now take this opportunity to move across to something completely different, yet still very, very intensive. This, of course, is a single player game. This is one of the best looking games, I think, of all time. This is some Cyberpunk 2077, and we've currently got this running actually, well, outputting at 4K. We're using XeSS 2.0 to get there with XeSS set to performance. And as you can clearly see, we're pretty much nailing that 60 FPS target that you are going to have in a game like this, but especially if you are rocking a display that has variable refresh rate, then this is just going to give you such a great experience, especially bear in mind that we're outputting at 4K. This is not what this graphics card is aimed at. It's very much for 1440p and 1080p, but I just kind of wanted to illustrate really, just because that is what it's targeted at. Depending on the game, it doesn't mean that you're going to just be limited to that, essentially. Now, we don't have any ray tracing or anything enabled at the moment, but XeSS 2.0 is doing a very, very good job, actually, of keeping everything sharp. It definitely looks very 4K. It's not one of those ones where it's outputting at 4K, but everything's kind of just so blurry that it basically isn't. And rather coolly as well, by the way, we are actually running this at the Ultra preset. The only thing I have changed is this XeSS 2 performance, but let's set this to balanced and then go in and change our resolution. Oh, the capture card's not let me do 1440p. Fine, to 1080 then. XeSS quality. But you can see obviously that the frame rate has gone up. And this is one of those games that can actually get a little bit CPU bound in certain instances, especially once you start turning on ray tracing and things, it gets very, very intense. But you can see here actually that our GPU load is about 95% or so. So I'd say that that's still mainly going to be down to the GPU, but you can see it does dip down there like every now and then. Like when we aim up to the sky, you can see that GPU utilization does go down. So that goes to show that even if you were to like upgrade the GPU in this, you wouldn't necessarily be seeing a higher frame rate. So you do have a fair bit of FPS in hand. And I mean, if you were to play this at 1440p, I do think that would give you the optimum experience. But let's see what happens when we turn a little bit of ray tracing on. Let's do just reflections for now. So you can see that our frame rate has gone down a bit. We're now looking around about 78 to 90 frames a second or so. But this is still way more FPS really than you kind of need in something like Cyberpunk. I'd say that if you're playing like a hard mission where you just kind of need as much responsiveness as possible, that is obviously going to be the time to turn it off. But when you're kind of just driving around and sort of like enjoying the sights and the sounds, then yeah, this is when RT is definitely going to come in handy. So about 80 frames a second with our reflections enabled. And if we go ahead and turn everything on, and then come out of it, obviously our frame rate has dropped down, but still well above 60 frames a second actually, around about like 73, 76 FPS. So more than you are going to get if you're outputting at 4K, even if you are going to be using that XeSS 2.0. I mean, we've got XeSS here set to qualities, so if you were going to be playing at 1080p, then you may as well turn this off unless you're going to be using RT, because once again, you might start to hit a little bit of CPU bottlenecking, and I've just had to blur that out. That was not suitable for this video. So that's your hardcore multiplayer then, and your single player with ray tracing, but let's be honest, a lot of people that are going to be building a system like this where you just want something that can do everything, you're probably going to be playing some more strategy games, some things that are a little bit more laid back. I've been playing a lot of XCOM again recently, which is way more fun than I remembered. I got the DLC for £3, best £3 I've ever spent. Anyway, that's besides the point, because this of course is Civilization VII. Once again, a title you can actually get as part of that pack if you do buy a qualifying Ultra CPU, certain Ultra laptops, or of course B570 or B580. Again, all of the qualifying parts and things, terms and conditions, everything is linked down below. But Civilization VII is a game I really need to get back into actually. I haven't played this since I last went on vacation, and we've got this running with XeSS and XeSS frame generation as well, which is pretty cool. And in something like Civilization, this just makes so much sense because, okay, it is going to affect the latency a little bit, but obviously in a title like this does not matter whatsoever. So we're now getting around about 120, 125 frames a second on what is quite a big map actually. You can see this is my last played game, and there's quite a lot of map revealed. There's quite a lot going on, and we've got this set to, I think, max settings actually, and at 4K. So we've got XeSS set to ultra quality, ambient occlusion high, and then everything else, yeah, is set to high, and sharpness is medium, but I don't think that affects the quality. That's just how sharp you want the image to look, essentially. So this is actually a surprisingly difficult game to run, especially actually on the CPU as well. Anything that requires a lot of processing, so like turn times and things, obviously the faster the CPU, then the more, well, not the more FPS, but the faster the turn calculation is going to be, and thus the less time you're going to spend waiting around. But yeah, no problem here whatsoever. I think this is perfectly matched actually for a system around about 120 frames a second, once again at 4K. But of course, as we have stated numerous times throughout this video, this is not just a machine that's geared just for gaming. This is about productivity as well, creativity, and if you want to do anything like editing photos, using Photoshop, video editing, which obviously is what I do, then having something with a lot of horsepower, a load of cores, and a decent GPU is going to help you out massively. So let's see if this can actually handle my workflow. So this is a Blackmagic file. This is 6K RAW, so very very big on the file size, pretty intense to actually work through. We're scrubbed through this so you can see that it is nice and smooth. We're select a point, we'll press play, and then fundamentally, obviously you want that full 30 frames a second so you're not dropping any frames and it's nice and pleasant when it comes to actually edit. But realistically, I think definitely not most PCs, but a lot of PCs can handle one of these files. Let's see what happens when we try and actually stack them together. So let's get a little bit of B-roll look of the backside of this machine. And if we pan this down just so we're actually running both at the same time, you can still see that that does maintain that 30 frames a second. Let's duplicate this again, and then we're just gonna randomly move that there, just again to show you how it handles it. Can it handle 3 feeds at the same time? Well, it definitely had to put it into memory, but yep, there it is, 30 frames a second still. So if you have 3 Blackmagic cameras like we do here, and you want to chuck it in, 12 gigabytes of VRAM as well being utilized, seems to work quite nicely. Once again, do want to reiterate, it's going to depend exactly on your timeline, what you're putting on it, the color work that you're doing. But here you can see those 3 feeds running at the same time with a little bit of color work, and it seems to handle it very, very well. But hopping back into Cyberpunk, because I realized we didn't actually talk about our thermals and acoustics, I do want to quickly say that in terms of our GPU, we're currently getting around about 66, 67 degrees on the GPU. So whilst you could definitely add more fans to this system, I don't really think that's going to be necessary, despite the fact that this is currently running flat out at 99%. But then I almost can't believe this when it comes to the CPU temperatures. That's really, really low. That's around about like a max of 56 degrees I've seen. Now granted, this isn't Cinebench, so if you were to properly max out this chip, fully utilize it, then obviously it's going to generate more heat. But yeah, about 56 degrees in a gaming load is really not too shabby whatsoever, especially bearing in mind the whole thing is basically silent. Like, you definitely can hear a slight whistle from the fans, but this is one of the quietest PCs really that I've made, especially that has 20 cores. Again, I know it will be slightly different when you're running it in like a Cinebench or rendering something, but still very, very impressive nonetheless. I think really that's the moral of this PC story, really. If you want to go for something that is obviously for 4K gaming, full ray tracing, then this is not the machine for you. You're going to want to spend more money on a graphics card and get something that has more performance. But if you want, especially with that CPU, just a chip that can pretty much do everything, it's not necessarily geared towards like one thing, it's kind of like a jack of all trades, then it's definitely worth considering it at the price that it is now. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is this the sort of system that would interest you? Do you do a lot of things other than gaming on your PC? Do you want a high core count system? Or are you just kind of like absolutely trying to maximize pure gaming bang for buck above everything else? We'd love to hear from you, so let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Smash the like button if you've enjoyed this, get yourself subscribed, and of course, as always, current pricing with our affiliate links is listed down below. Thanks for watching, we'll catch you in the next one.